You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast.
You're listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. My name is Shawn Wilkie, and along with my awesome co-host, we interview the innovators in this space every week. Ivan, please go ahead and introduce today's guest.
Hey, I'm Ivan Zach, and I'm really excited to introduce a colleague of mine, Dr. Sharon Quinn. Dr. Sharon is a veterinarian and practice owner, CEO of SmartVet, a veterinary virtual care startup based out of Greater Toronto Area, and a co-founder of the Canadian Veterinary Virtual Association. Dr. Quinn is also a mother of four, and in her spare time is the Canadian National Director of International Singing Competition. Welcome to the show, Sharon. Thank you for finding the time.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So, looks like you're busy. Wow. 4 kids, you're an entrepreneur, and you're director of Canadian National Singing Competition.
Yeah.
So, before we dive into it further, I just want to find out, how do you find the time for everything?
I'm not sure. I'm still, I don't know. People ask me that all the time. I think I just love being busy, and my kids are awesome. They're getting older now. My youngest is almost 11. So it's definitely easier now. And actually my eldest is a co-founder of SmartVet with me. He's 26 years old. So, you know, he's certainly a huge help. So I have to say, no, it's just been a lot of fun, and I enjoy everything I do. The singing competition is a hobby, so that's in my quote unquote spare time. But yeah, I really enjoy being a veterinarian and everything that's come along with it, and feel very fortunate to have taken this little bend in my career in my career path I really wasn't anticipating, but it's been really incredibly rewarding.
That's incredible. So your son, is he a developer, or what role is he taking in the venture?
Yeah, no, 2 of our other co-founders, one is a developer, one's a product designer. And then Mike, my son, he actually had just finished his business degree at the University of Toronto when we started SmartVet in 2018. And it was his dream to become involved in a startup. It's just it just evolved very naturally from there. He would come and sit at the table with us when we were talking through things, and started to contribute more and more and more, and then just really took it and ran with it. So he's a business background for him, but I would say, and he's been immersed in the veterinary industry since he was a wee guy. I was going through vet school. He was just 4 years old. So he's really been around it his whole life. He grew up in a clinic setting. So it just was a natural fit.
So you also had your kids while you were going through vet school. You're like you're a trooper. So let's talk about SmartVet. So Smart.Vet, for those that want to visit it. So Smart.Vet. What is it about? What do you do? And how is it different from your competition?
Yeah, so SmartVet is, originally we started as a technology company. We offered software for hospitals to provide their own telemedicine services to their own clients. And that made a lot of sense, particularly through COVID, as you know, clinics needed a way to deliver services that didn't involve clients coming into the hospital. So that worked out very well. What we found, and what I think has been really exciting for me, towards the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, is that hospitals needed help, not just with the technology, but they needed manpower to provide telemedicine services to their clients. And so we were able to build a network of veterinarians and registered veterinary technicians to help provide that service. So I think what differentiates us is that, well, entirely what differentiates us is that we work through hospitals. So we never advertise directly to the public. We are always working through hospitals that want our service. So hospitals, day practices that are overburdened, for example, emergency hospitals that are all seeing far too many cases coming through their doors right now. And then clinics doing their own on-call that need help managing the work-life balance and not being woken up. You know, nobody can work 24/7. So we handle a lot of that for them and take a lot off their plates.
It's so interesting, and interesting about the pivot as well. So can you tell us a little bit about, you know, the transition from kind of providing direct care to clients and now to providing care through veterinary hospitals? Why did you make the change?
I think it was really demand. So we had, you know, some of those hospitals that we had set up our platform for their clinic were reaching out, just asking for the help. It started with one hospital who had 4 veterinarians all they were doing their own on-call for a really vast area. And just the positioning geographically of that hospital with COVID and the borders being shut down, some of their clients previously had the ability to go to the US for care or people in their region had the ability to go to the US for care, that was no longer an option. So that whole area was gravitating towards this one hospital. In addition, their closest emergency clinic was the next province over, so it was in Manitoba. And again, during COVID, people were really reluctant to cross provincial borders as well. So it just created a situation that was really not sustainable for them, and they needed the help. So it was a natural fit. We were speaking with practices constantly as we were implementing our platform. And so it just sort of, it followed. We had built a small network of veterinarians already, and we're offering locally just some local services, really very informally in the GTA. And so we thought, well, why not? Let's try and offer just a triage service to start, and we'll expand it from there if they need full telemedicine. And we actually found we were able to divert about 70% of cases away from needing to access the veterinarian immediately for in-person care, which you can imagine had a tremendous impact on quality of life for those veterinarians who were burning out pretty badly.
It's so wild, Sharon. I mean, me and Ivan I feel like we've been at the center of this kind of like virtual care, telemedicine conversation for like 3 years now. At the start of the pandemic, we hosted a couple of webinars around this and really had seen all of these companies and the move towards kind of more virtual model and care shifting. It's been fascinating to watch, and it looks like it's actually taking hold. Now, the interesting thing is you're in Ontario. Ontario seems to have the best laws around establishing a VCPR in the world right now. It seems like you're leading the world. Are most of your clients in the Ontario region, or are you guys branching out, providing services all over the US and Canada, or where are your customers?
Yeah, definitely. Right now, the service is available. It's called Virtual Vet Support, VBS service. That service is available only in Ontario currently. We offer our software internationally. But in terms of VBS, it's in Ontario. We receive inquiries daily from other regions wanting help there as well. And so we are planning to expand. But as you said, regulations in this province are the most favorable in terms of allowing not only the establishment of a VCPR remotely, which has been in place since 2018, but also now since the pandemic began in 2020, we've been able to prescribe in the province. And up until very recently, we weren't certain whether prescriptions were going to continue to be allowed because it was a temporary relaxation of prescribing in Ontario. But as of this summer, that was made a permanent relaxation with some guardrails in place. So we're really, really pleased about that. And to this date, at least as far as when I spoke with Jan Robinson last, which wasn't too long ago, there have been no complaints to the CVO as a result of medical care or any prescriptions being given to an animal through remote prescribing or any sort of virtual care in the province.
It's so crazy. So, I mean, burnout is nothing new for this industry. It's been something we've been talking about also for a couple of years now. The interesting part that I want to kind of dive into is what's the demographic of your remote team look like? Who are these people that are providing the virtual care? You know, are these people that have burnt out and now sitting on a beach somewhere? Talk about the people that are working for you. What do they look like? What's their demographic?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to get into that because it's really so variable. One of our core sort of philosophies is we don't want to exacerbate the problem we're trying to solve. So we do not want to pull veterinarians out of hospitals. That's definitely not what we're trying to do. So when we have full-time veterinarians joining our team, they're either typically veterinarians who have not been recently in clinical practice but have decided to come back to help out clinically because they see the crisis that the industry's in. Sometimes there are people in very remote areas who can't physically be in practice, or they may have other personal reasons why remote work is best for them, or that's family reasons, health reasons, etc. In terms of the DVM staff, we have 7 part and full-time veterinarians working for us. The vast majority of our vets, about 90 in total, are on what we call our network. So these are veterinarians who are independent contractors. They are either practice owners themselves, or they're working in other clinics, part or full-time. ERs, a lot of them, so they could be, we have a few who are completing post-grad degrees. They can be doing any number of things, or residencies and things like that. So, but they're doing this essentially to help in their spare time. whenever they can. So that's how the majority of our consults are seen. And then on the technician side, we have, I think we're nearing 50 RVTs now on our platform. Again, only a handful are full-time. Everyone else is sort of jumping in, a lot of weekend hours and things like that when they're not actually working in clinic. And like, just similarly to the veterinarians, they may be in referral hospitals, educational institutions, private practice. And some of them aren't in clinical practice for various reasons. They may, a fair number of our vets and RVTs are just on mat leaves or coming off mat leaves. And this is a way of easing back into the workforce.
Huge help to the younger parents. That's one of those areas of burnout that is very significant in our domain, because you're challenged sort of like yourself during the practice and vet school and now the startup, having kids and trying to manage it together. It's extremely difficult. One of those areas where we're focusing on research and more. But can you, for those that are listening to this, there's multiple virtual care platforms. There's like so many of them appeared. Can you walk us through the experience? Just like, what is that customer journey for the pet owner? So what are they like? I have a problem. I find SmartVet. What happens then? Where do I pay? And how do I do diagnostics if they're required? Where am I referred? And then how do I get my prescription? Sort of, if you can walk us through the experience, just to kind of imagine it while they're listening to podcast.
Absolutely. Okay. And again, where I think we differ the most from your kind of marketplace style platforms is that the clients are not finding us online. Typically, what's happening is that their hospital or an emergency hospital is saying, no, we want you to access this service. Sometimes the ERs are saying, go there first to see if you really need physical care. A lot of times the primary care vets are doing the same thing, or if they're on-call vets are saying you need to access this service first and then you can come see us if it's needed. So the customer journey typically starts with some sort of a reach out to their own practice or to the ER, where they're either verbally told or they see on the website that the intent is to come and speak with us. So most often they're calling a phone number. When they call that phone number, that number's manned 24/7 by our RVT team. So they speak with a registered veterinary technician, and this piece of our service has only been available since December, but I implemented that RVT team primarily because I wanted to keep critical cases out of a telemedicine queue. Prior to that, people were booking organically online, and that's the problem. Sometimes pet owners don't realize how serious the condition is, and they can waste time sitting in a queue when they really have no time to waste. So the first step that happens when they call, they speak with the RVT, and the RVTs have a list of questions and criteria to look for to determine whether this pet has a critical need for immediate physical care. If the pet does have that need, then the RVT's job is to document what they can, and they work with a number of map tools, et cetera, to figure out what's the closest clinic to that patient that would be open right now. They contact that hospital. Can they accept this patient? If yes, we arrange a transfer. And the client can get on their way. We send them the information we have so they can start a file before the client gets there. If they cannot see the patient, then we keep going outward in a radius until we find somewhere that can. There's no cost for that service. Our goal is always just to get them to care as quickly as possible. We don't take any payment for that. And that's about 15% of cases that require a direct transfer, just for statistically what we see. From there, if they're not one that needs a direct transfer, then they're put into our telemedicine queue. So they're scheduled for an appointment, and it's on demand. So essentially they go into a queue, or they're seen as quickly as they possibly can be by a virtual veterinarian. Wait times can vary. If you asked me a few months ago, I would say our average wait time was 7 minutes. Our caseload has gone up tremendously since then. So during, like right now, this time of day, I'd say it's just a couple minutes. Sometimes on a Saturday or Sunday, we can be up to a few hours at times, and that's why we've paused onboarding clinics for now while we, boost up our staff. But in any case, when we're dealing with wait times at ERs of 12 hours, 18 hours, 36 hours, a couple hours is okay. And we've already determined these are non-critical cases, and we keep in touch with that client. So while they're in the queue, the RVT team is keeping in contact with them. They always have a way to reach the team as well if something changes with respect to the status of their pet. and we're keeping in regular contact, just updating them. Sometimes animals can be pushed down in the queue if more urgent cases come in. So we're just keeping in contact with them, managing their expectations. Once they see the virtual veterinarian, then about 50% of those patients will require a prescription. And about 20-ish% of those patients require a transfer at the end of that consult. So the veterinarian may see that vomiting dog that wasn't deemed critical by the RVT, but the veterinarian might see it and say, I'm a little suspicious of a foreign body in this situation, and I really feel better if you got some physical care for your pet today. So then we'll arrange that transfer for them in about 20% of cases. And like I said, about 50% are managed at home with medications. There can be times we do a combination of things. If we know that the wait time at the ER is going to be 12 hours and the animal has some back pain, we might prescribe something for them while they're waiting to be seen. So we can do a combination, but most often it's sort of one or the other. Medications can be obtained through human pharmacies when possible. But then also the regulations, while one hospital can't act as a dispensing pharmacy for another veterinarian as a kind of blanket rule, I would say most of our cases, if not all of our cases, fall under the exemptions for dispensing without a BCPR, so that either the family practice who couldn't see them that day, or the ER who wasn't able to see them that day, or wanted to not, if they didn't have to, can dispense medications on behalf of that patient if they choose to. So their veterinarian will look at the case. We'll send our script over. Their veterinarian will take a look and say, yep, I feel comfortable with this. And then they'll dispense the medication for the patient.
It's so fascinating, and it feels like the future. It feels like, oh, hey, we've been doing things kind of a backwards way for a little while, and now we're moving into the future, which is really great. I was just in Kansas City this last weekend, hosted a panel discussion on burnout. And I know that we have a lot of veterinarians, a lot of techs that jump in and listen to our show. And the reality is a lot of these people are looking to kind of just leave the industry right away. I had 3 people come up to me and tell me that after the conference, they're thinking about maybe just going back and quitting their job. So if there's people that are listening to this podcast that are in that state and thinking, hey, I like the profession, I just don't like, the commute, and I don't like the environment that I'm working in, what kind of people are you guys looking for? It's a great, platform to tell people what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think we're looking for people who still have a love and passion for the profession. It is a wonderful profession, but I also see the challenges, and I think that I in my own career have burned out a couple times. I recognize it now. I didn't recognize it at the time, I don't think. It's challenging. It's tough for any of us who are involved, and it extends to even customer support staff as well. I would say if you still have a passion for the profession, and I think it's very stressful for people who have that passion, who have been involved, but have been sort of felt forced out or felt like I just can't carry on anymore. But to see the crisis that the state of pet care is in throughout North America right now and not be able to help is also very stressful. So a number of people have come back to clinical work through working with us and say, it's a fantastic option to be able to still contribute, use your skill set, do it on your own schedule, when you want to, take shorter shifts if the part of the concern is the long hours. So the flexibility of it and the opportunity to still work as a team. So we tried to create a culture where we have as close to a kind of clinic environment as we can with a virtual office space. So we use some software that actually puts us into it. It looks very funny because people always think I'm playing a video game when they see me in it, but it's like a virtual office, and then everyone has their avatar and they can dress however they want and look however they want to look. And we go in there and we speak to one another. We turn our mics on and we chat, and there's different, it gets very silly. There's barbecues, there's a hot tub, it's, there's all kinds of things. It's very fun to work in there. People play tricks on each other, stick things on each other's avatars and signs on the wall. And we have pictures up of everybody's pets. And it sounds silly, but it creates a happy place for people who are working from home, which can get a little lonely. Sometimes some people love it, and other people say, I kind of miss being in an office, but this sort of replaces that in a sense. and gives you the collegial kind of team atmosphere that I think a lot of people really crave. And it's a very positive experience for everyone. And I think I'm very proud of the culture we've created there. We have regular staff meetings, so you don't feel like you're just kind of on an island doing your own thing, and that's key.
That's really cool. Yeah. Well, before we jump to the next, we actually blew through the time. Every time we do this. But I do want to ask from the client perspective, how do they pay for services? Is it at each service, or is there subscription of a sort? So through that journey, where do they commit to payment and what do they pay for?
So when they're speaking with the RVT will take the credit card information. They're quoted for the consult. They'll take the credit card information and then we just charge at the end. So when we've completed the consult and we know what needs to be charged, whether there was a prescription or whatever, then they're charged at the end of the interaction. And the expectation most times is there won't be ongoing interactions. We will communicate with that client, make sure everything's going well. Sometimes the vet will follow up a couple days later, but generally speaking, it's meant to be, we're an extension of the practice. So we're not replacing primary care or anything. So for reevaluations and that kind of thing, we encourage them to go back and see their regular family veterinarian. If the family veterinarian says, I can't see them for 3 weeks, you wanted them in 3 days, they'll turf them back to us if needed. So they'll pay a separate fee each time. Basically, it's per use.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. Very, very interesting. And I'm so excited to see how it's evolving. I was such a skeptic for last 5 years plus on the telemedicine because vets just so resistant to change. And it did seem like the approach should be not from within the clinic, but from outside supporting the clinic. And I see that happening more and more.
It seems like, Ivan, if there's no other option, that's the one way to induce change.
Yeah. Well, COVID didn't change our industry, and it was like the worst thing that can happen to the planet. And we still didn't apply the telemedicine. So
yeah, I think it's happening more for the veterinarian shortage that's kind of pushed it along. And I just wish that, we're in the trenches every day and we see how bad the crisis is getting. We see day practices that have a vet literally only 1 day a week, and they're sending us everything else. It's so bad. And I can't imagine in provinces and states that do not allow this, how they're coping. I would challenge any regulator to come sit with us for a day and see the volume of cases. I just think that access to care in areas where the regulations don't provide for this it's probably pretty tragic if you really start to look at what's happening to pets out there. So there's just so much to be done still in terms of moving that forward too. But you know what? This is progress. It is progress, and I'm proud of how far the industry's come in this time.
Well, thank you for leading that progress, and thank you for finding the time to come here. We have 2 questions at the end of the show that we ask everybody. Is there a book, a TED Talk, YouTube video, or anything that inspired you that you would like to share with our listeners?
I would like to put up the book Pet Nation by Mark Cushing is one that I think everyone might be interested in reading. And it's not specific to virtual care in any way, shape, or form, but just talking about the culture of pet ownership and kind of how that's all evolved in North America. I think it's pretty interesting.
That's awesome. And then the last question, is there another innovator that you think we should have on the show?
I would say Craig Mosley. He's a veterinary anesthesiologist, was a prof of mine in school, and just he's just so keen on all things new in veterinary medicine, but also just has a real passion for the industry and the profession and a really interesting viewpoint and take on things. So I think he'd be a great one to have on.
Thank you so much for listening to the Veterinary Innovation Podcast. If you want to hear about our new episodes, please follow us on any social media channel. Also, you can check out our website at veterinarynnovationpodcast.com. See you next week.